to everybody present here. I welcome you all to the third lecture titled Neural Machine at Work of this periodic lecture series on philosophy, human, and technology, which is organized by Astitva, the Department of Philosophy of Mata Sunari College. I hope that this lecture will provide us with a wider perspective of the topic and help us enrich our knowledge. It will surely help us grow and we shall have a lot to learn. Now, I would like to call upon the co-convener of this program, Dr. Kirandeep Kaur ma'am, to introduce the topic of the lecture for the day.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that today we are heading towards the third lecture of periodic lecture series sponsored by ICPR on philosophy, human, and technology. The topic for today's lecture is neural machine at work. In the last lectures, we heard how technology and the manipulation of human agency by social media algorithms, the example of movies like The Matrix, where Wachowski shows a future in which people are plugged into virtual reality game. Likewise, in artificial intelligence, a woman is being shown to deal with her robot child. Humanoid robots are much into talks and discussion in the present context. But what is important for us is to understand this meeting between mind and machine. It is easy to say that we human are like machines. Our bodies are like machines that operates in a particular manner. We work on program like patterns. But is it right to reduce or rather restrict human complexity to that level? Let us try to understand and delve deep into the topic as we have our distinguished speaker with us, Dr. RM Singh. We welcome you, sir. Uh, right. Our principal ma'am is here.
No,
Uh,
Kiran, she has not yet joined.
okay, ma'am. Then Mehak, over to you.
Uh, Thank you, ma'am. Now I'd like to invite our convener and our teacher in charge, Dr. Himta Krishnani, ma'am, to welcome our guest speaker for the day. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mehak. A very pleasant afternoon to everyone. Uh, my colleagues, our distinguished guest speaker of the day, Professor Singh, and my dear students. I take the privilege to introduce our speaker, Professor Singh. But before doing that, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and taking out time from your extremely busy schedule to be a part of periodic lecture series on the topic of philosophy, humans, and technology. Thanks a lot, sir. I know you're extremely busy. Professor Singh is part of Delhi University, Department of Philosophy as an associate professor. He has over 25 years of experience in teaching, and his areas of specializations are philosophy of mind and continental philosophy. He is recipient of many awards and honors. He was awarded Associateship of Inter-University Center for Humanities and Social Sciences at Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, and also awarded University Grant Commission's India Research Associateship for the research project Consciousness Towards a Unified Theory. Professor Singh has published many articles in the area of his specialization, and they can be found in reputed journals like Indian Philosophical Quarterly and Journal of ICPR and Radical Humanists, to name a few. I will just read out name of certain articles that we find in all these in these journals. Mind, Modularity and Evolution, A Case for Phenomenological Realism, Is There a Break in Sartre's Thought? All these are Sir specializations, and we find many articles in many reputed journals. Besides that, we have Sir's chapters in published books on consciousness and phenomenology, and he has delivered lectures both national and international universities. Special mention Kyoto University, Japan, on the modularity, trouble, and theories of consciousness. Sir is also convener of various prestigious committees at the university and is actively participating in them. We are honored indeed to have you among us as a speaker, sir. Thank you, and we are looking for your presentation on the topic of the neural machine at work. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Hemlata, and I'm very grateful to the college and my colleagues in philosophy department for having thought of inviting me, and I'm much obliged to you for allowing me to share some of my ideas with you. Now, what I so let me just switch off something here so that you are not disturbed. Okay. Now, so what I want to start with is that we often, as Kirandeep was talking, we often tend to blame technology or AI researchers, that is in short for artificial intelligence, or maybe even scientists for taking a very grim picture of human reality. And we always tend to feel that a mechanized, a mechanical way of looking at human existence is really doesn't bring out the best of what human nature is. Now, what I want to do is I want to, sort of both appreciate the, you can say, the deep roots of AI in philosophy, in history of philosophy. Also, I want to show, in some senses, the origins of this thinking of looking at human body as nothing but sophisticated machine are very much in philosophy. Uh, so, so what we find is that we see two very opposed, uh, thinking, thinkings which are progressing, so to say, parallelly in philosophy. So, in some senses, you know, we uh, we thought of the challenge that would be there before artificial intelligence, and that was almost 3 centuries before artificial intelligence. Anybody in the world thought of artificial intelligence. So in that sense, we were really, that we, by we mean the philosophers, were really ahead of times, in the sense that we thought of challenges that any attempt, like what we subsequently came to designate as artificial intelligence, would face if it was to in any way attempt to move in that line. So we had these, we thought of these challenges. At the same time, we are also those who really viewed body in mechanistic terms. And what I've chosen for today is uh, uh, that both these thinking, in fact, are at the forefront, not across philosophers, not across epochs, but they are there in one and the same person, and that is Rene Descartes. So we will find how Descartes, almost 300 years before Alan Turing was born, he's the one who, started what is called artificial intelligence. He did not name it as that, but we have for many decades we used to teach his 1950 mind paper on computing machinery. Now, while Turing thought of that in the middle of the 20th century, we had what you can say in Descartes, we had a challenge that Turing is wanting to articulate for artificial systems. So we have that kind of a thinking in philosophy and in Descartes. At the same time, we have the same philosopher thinking of human body to be nothing else but a sophisticated machine. So I start with that. I'm just prepared a little thing. So you please, can you please tell me how much time is there? Because my presentation, I was discussing with Hemlata. I'm very, and over the years, those who have studied in philosophy department know I'm quite notorious for taking extra classes or taking long classes. So see, Jolly is agreeing. so so I was telling him, Lata, that no, it's the topic is too vast. So I will stop. So what you can do is, if you tell me that the time I have, then I'll stop 15 minutes before that. So I'll stop my discussion at that stage, and then I would like to go through a list of some very exciting researches that are happening in AI. So that will just take me 10 to 15 minutes to show you the contours of the exciting research that is happening. So now we are at 3:45. So how much time do I take for this? And
Sir,
then like from that, I will deduct 15 minutes.
no, okay. I think you can discuss the issues till 3:30, then 15 minutes for your, the examples that you want to share, and then 15 minutes for a question answer session.
Okay. Okay. So I'll try to finish, because
Yeah.
then where especially things start getting a bit technical, we can stop, because,
Yeah.
the idea is to introduce what the discipline is all about.
Absolutely.
And then instead of going into the technical details of it, we can straight come towards the end, where we will talk about some exciting work that is happening.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. So I'm starting sharing the screen. I have prepared this write-up specifically keeping the undergrad students in mind. So we can keep going through it. Of course, I'll not be reading out directly from there, and I'll be moving, and explaining things that are there. Okay, just a minute. Has the screen come up?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
There.
Okay, good. Okay, now see, Descartes is a very what to say is a very peculiar figure in the history of philosophy, uh, and we find we remember him, we celebrate his work for the simple reason that Descartes, in many ways, epitomizes, you know, some very contradictory, uh, what to say, contradictory trends in his personality, in his thinking. So what we find is that when we look at Descartes, Descartes had a very religious upbringing. Okay, that is one thing. Secondly, he had a great fascination for science. He, at a very early relatively age, he had become an undisputed figure as in the field of mathematics. So he had these two kind of influences on him. One was a very religious upbringing. Second is his he as a great mathematician. Now, what we find in the literature, which is referred to as, if we can say this, you know, if we can call it in this way, uh, so what we have in the philosophy is that there is a kind of crisis of confidence. It is referred to as, technically, crisis of confidence in the delivery of the senses. Now, what we see is that in Descartes' time, or even slightly before him, what was happening was that there was this clash, or you can say antagonism, between two kinds of thinking. One was the traditional thinking, which you can say came down through tradition, the European tradition, or the Greek tradition, largely Christian, Judo-Christian tradition, and which believed that the whole cosmos was created for the sake of men. Uh, and I'm not using the politically correct terminology here, for the simple reason that not that I don't want to use that vocabulary, but in those days, it was, the whole thinking was very, very male centric. So we need to appreciate. We need to not appreciate it. We need to be aware of how the things were and how things have changed. So basically, what happened is that in this antagonism between religious thinking, the traditional thinking, the thinking that came from church, and we need to note that church, unlike present day religious institutions, church in the Western society was one of the most powerful institutions. They had tremendous economic power. They were very close to the powers that be, and also the church had a total monopoly over education. So they, as some of the philosophy commentators have pointed out that they not only controlled the other world, the heavens, but they also controlled uh, your being, so to say, in this world. So if you wanted to be educated, you had to go to the church. Church controlled education in those days. Now the problem was when so I'm situating Descartes. In the time of Descartes, what is happening is uh, Copernicus's mathematical proposals had shaken the roots of Judeo-Christian thinking, the thinking which argued that Earth was the center of the universe. So it was a geocentric view of reality, and everything around, including Sun and other planets, revolved around Earth. And within Earth, the man was the center of the universe. So, and everything else, in some senses, was meant for, you can say, for the sake of, or you can say for the benefit of human beings, largely men. Now, in some senses, I'm just connecting it on the side that in many senses, present day, a lot of environmentalists believe that the kind of environmental crisis we are facing today, in many ways, is grounded in this thinking that everything in the universe, everything in the world is meant for our enjoyment, for our consumption. So, but this was the kind of a thinking that was very much there in the scriptures of Western society. So, Copernicus's mathematical model shakes that up. Uh, and Galileo's uh, actual work confirms it. Now, what is it that Galileo's work is confirming? Galileo's work is confirming that it is not the Earth that is the center of the universe, as was stated in the Old Testament, chapter 3 on Genesis, but it is the other way around. It is at least when we look at our own planets around us, we find that Earth and other planets are revolving around Sun. So within our own system, it is Sun that is at the center of the universe. Now, why should it be called as crisis of confidence in the deliverances of the senses? Was a crisis because before Copernicus, or till the time of Copernicus, these two antagonistic lines of thinking, that is religion and tradition versus science, were arguing for different kind of yardsticks for deciding reality of things. Now, what Galileo's work does is it cuts down the roots of both these kinds of thinking systems. So earlier on, we believed in tradition. The Western society believed in tradition. It believed in what scriptures told it, that Earth was the center of the universe. As opposed to this traditional thinking, the scientific thinking was, or you can say it had the motto of seeing is believing. So it was believed that you only believe what you see. So this is a kind of, you can say, a crude level of empiricism or crude level of realism that was at play in the world. But what Galileo's work does it demolishes both these forms of thinking. It goes against the scriptures by showing that what scriptures tell us, give us, is not how things actually are. And its work shows that uh, Earth is in no way center of the universe, and within our own planetary system, it is Sun that is at the center of our planetary system. That means it puts a big question mark on the authenticity, on the recommendations of the scriptures. It tends to show that what scriptures tell us is not the right thing. However, we would have believed that a scientific work like that of a great figure like Galileo would be substantiating the empiricist outlook. That is, that okay, we go by what our senses tell us. Okay. However, unlike that crude empiricism, Galileo is so important because his theory shows that what our senses tell us is not necessarily true. Okay, so it creates a confidence, you can say crisis of confidence in what our senses tell us. So it not only creates crisis for the script thinking of the scriptures, but it also creates crisis for the science that existed up to that time. That is, that our senses can tell us what the how the world is like. So Galileo argued that there's nothing called rising and setting of the sun. So, though our eyes, time and again, for everybody show that there is rising and the setting of the sun, Galileo's theory demonstrated to us it was nothing but a visual illusion. Okay, so the implication of that being that our senses really don't tell us how the world is. So our senses are therefore likely to mislead us as much as the scriptures can mislead us. That being the case, both the foundations of knowledge that existed, whether they were at antagonism with each other or they were in sync, partially in sync with each other, whatever that be, at that time, there were only two, you can say, sources of knowledge: tradition, scriptures, and the science. And science believed in senses. Now, science here is undergoing a transformation where it says, no, we don't have to necessarily believe in what our sense organs tell us. So, seeing cannot be considered as believing. It is at this juncture that we have Descartes. That is why we have a philosopher who's so radical in his doubting about reality of everything. At the same time, now I'm not going to repeat what we teach all the time about Descartes, how, we can doubt everything except our own existence or our own thinking. So I'm not getting into that. But what I'm trying to say is that uh, Descartes is at a time where he is wanting to reconcile two totally opposed demands on him, and he has, so to say, his two legs planted in both, that is his religiosity and his own fascination, and he himself being a great mathematician and a scientist. So it is in this context that we need to look at how Descartes' thinking is very much you can say, conditioned in some senses by the ethos of his time, and how in many ways he's totally breaking out of that ethos. Now, when we come to the discussion of the body, and why it is important, because Descartes' influence has been uh, overwhelming for philosophy. So, in fact, he gave us the mind-body dualism, which even till date we are not fully reconciled with. A lot of philosophers have argued that he divided us, that is human beings, into two halves, and we have never been successfully able to rejoin them again. So it is in this context that we need to situate his thinking on body. Now Descartes, thinking on, or his views or his thought on body is articulated in a work called The World, which is published as The World and Other Essays. And this he started working in 1629. However, this work was abandoned by him because he heard of the condemnation of Galileo in 1633 by church. Now, in this, and it is for maybe for this and other reasons that it is as late as 1998 that this work was fully translated. Of course, it was long available for in the Europe in French and other languages. However, its excerpts, portions were available to us, but it is only in 1998 that the full text became available to us. Now, this is the translation. As you can see on your screen, The World and Other Writings, which was brought out by Cambridge Texts in the History of Philosophy. So this is a classic texts that were brought out. There's a series by Cambridge University Press. So this is the work which primarily deals with, focuses upon his understanding of what a body, a human body, and even including animal body, what living bodies are. Now, the core doctrine of this work is about different bodily mechanisms, and what is to be appreciated, or one may appreciate it, one may feel shocked, one may feel uh, you know you know find it unbelievable that somebody in 1630s is believing that all vital functions of the body can be entirely explained, as it says here, mechanistic terms. In fact, in this work, the world, which has many portions, which is something on light, something on something else, as well as on treatise on men. This is the treatise on men. So this is another work that I'm talking about. So in this whole work, Descartes is proposing a mechanistic cosmology and mechanistic physiology. So for Descartes, there is no difference between the principles that govern the cosmic world, as well as the mechanisms that work, that govern lived bodies. This is the aim that he had. This is the thinking that he had. And even in this uh, work, which is entirely focused on nature of uh, human body, it offers a very comprehensive theory of body. But this comprehensive theory, the body is visualized as an automaton. Okay, that has to be noted. It is there in as many words. As soon as I go down, I'm going to read out a few very small passages for you as to what he thought about it. Now, and this view of human body as a sophisticated machine in Descartes is not confined only to normal bodily functions. It includes our perception, it includes all cognitive abilities. And he argued that all cognition, all perception, all human thinking can be accounted for in mechanistic psychophysiological terms. Okay. Now, Galileo, I have already discussed that he talked about the heliocentric theory. Of course, the only thing I want to say is that as soon as his work, that is Galileo's work, Dialogue Concerning Two Chief World Systems, which was brought out in 1632, which elaborated heliocentric theory, that is sun-centric theory, was immediately condemned by the Roman Inquisition. All copies of his work were withdrawn, and he had to recant. Recant basically mean that you have to withdraw what you said. And so you can cook up any excuses when you are condemned by the church. You can say that, okay, I was maybe taken possession of by the devil, or you can say, or you can, whatever you feel that, you had a attack of insanity, or whatever you want to call it. That's the only way you can save your life. Otherwise, the provision was that people who indulged in any heretical activity have to be burnt alive. And Galileo had to spend his time even after accepting, so even after offering all the copies of his book, they were all withdrawn and burnt. They were all so that the church believed that the humanity should not be allowed to be corrupted by his work, and he was put under house arrest. And this shook Descartes greatly. And we find that in writings, in his November 1633 letter, Descartes writes to his friend Marcini, and I'm just reading out. You can see the kind of intellectual environment in which Descartes was writing his work, and how he's trying to hide his own views on body, which he thought were likely to be, censored by the church. And he delayed his work because he did not want to attract attention of the church. So he says, I'm just reading out fast. He says, I had intended to send you Le Monde, that is the French newspaper, as a New Year gift. But in the meantime, I tried to find out in Leiden, there's a city in Europe, and Amsterdam, another city, whether Galileo's world system was available. As I thought, just a minute, let me just connect my laptop to the charger. Yeah, so he's saying that so he says that so he tried to find out at these two places whether Galileo's world system was available, as I thought I had heard that it was published in Italy last year. It is Descartes in his letter. I was told that it had indeed been published, but that all copies had been burnt at Rome and that Galileo had been convicted and fined. I was so surprised by this that I nearly decided to burn all my papers, or at least let no one see them. For I could not imagine that he, an Italian, and I believe in favor with the Pope, so Galileo was in good books of the Pope because he was a great scientist, could have been made a criminal just because he tried, as he certainly did, to establish that the earth moves around so and so. I must admit that if this view is false, then so too are the entire foundations of my own philosophy. For it can be demonstrated from them quite clearly. And it is such an integral part of my treatise that I couldn't remove it without making the whole work defective. But for all that, I wouldn't want to publish a discourse which had a single word that the church disapproved of. So I prefer to suppress it rather than publish it in a mutilated form. So this is Descartes uh, confidentially writing to his friend about the work that he's doing and how he says he does not want to be on the wrong side of the church, and he sees that his work that he's working on, what he thinks of body, is totally quite in line with Galileo's work, but it is not. So he's suppressing it. So what we have is therefore here is that Descartes is talking of cognition in entirely mechanistic terms. And why is it so problematic? It is so problematic because if we look at the thinking that exists in Descartes' time, that in those days, that thinking was that different, you can say, features of life were attributed in those times to different kinds of souls. So traditionally, some functions were attributed to the vegetative soul, some were attributed to the sensitive soul. But Descartes was trying to do away with that. Now, in fact, we find that in 1629, Descartes is telling again one of his friend that he has shifted to Amsterdam where he is studying anatomy, and you need to see the reason why I'm going on about this is that even today, if you look at any textbook of neurology, at least a page or two, or at least a paragraph, if it is a very comprehensive, if it is a very short summary, short introduction, then every book on neurology, even today, more than 300 years after what Descartes did, almost we are 350 odd years, has a page or a paragraph on Descartes. Because what Descartes demonstrated at that time, remained true not only in what he said about philosophy, but even about anatomy. So that's what we need to appreciate. And what was he doing at that time? Just look at the commitment that he had. He used to visit butcher. Okay, he used to visit the butcher daily to watch the slaughtering of animals, cattle. He took parts. Okay, he should take part to dissect these things. So he should take some parts that he wanted to look at in greater detail from the slaughterhouse and study that at his place where he was staying. A very small portion of this work on mechanistic physiology was published, a little part of it in Passions of the Soul in 49. That was the end of his life almost, because Descartes died in February 1650. So what we have here is then a completely mechanistic thinking. Here is a great philosopher who's talking about the thinking substance, who in Meditations on First Philosophy is arguing for the immortality of the soul, is simultaneously saying body is nothing but human body, a living human body, not only animals' bodies, is nothing but a mechanical, mechanical device, so to say. And from the treatise on men, you can see, I just picked up very few lines. He says, I suppose the body to be just a statue or a machine made of earth, which God forms with the explicit intention of making it as much as possible like us. We see further down the line. I recommend to all of you to read this treatise on men. It will be very, very revealing. And that's not something we generally teach in philosophy syllabuses. We see clocks, artificial fountains, mills, and other similar machines, which, even though they are only made by men, have the power to move of their own accord in various ways. And as I'm supposing that this machine is made by God, I think you will agree that it is capable of a greater variety of movements than I could possibly imagine it, and that it exhibits a greater ingenuity than I would possibly ascribe to it. After this, in the same work, Descartes goes on to explain every human bodily process entirely in mechanistic terms. Why is he doing that? He is doing that because in those days, that was the thinking. So God was at one place, and the entire physical world was conceived to be operating only in mechanistic way. For instance, let us see. He says, food is digested in the stomach of this machine. See, everywhere he's referring to human body, lived body, not the dead body, the lived body as a machine. Food is digested in the stomach of this machine by the force of certain fluids, which gliding shake and heat them. And what we see is that since because of limitation of time, I cannot go into the detail of it. Similar descriptions are available in the text almost on all bodily functions. In fact, the present day, one of the most famous French neuroscientist and consciousness researcher, Stanislas Dehaene, one of his celebrated work, has the following to say. So this explains to us, Dehaene's comment on Descartes explains to us how Descartes is working, with a thinking which is entirely mechanistic, and simultaneously believing in the immortality of the soul. And these two kinds of thinking patterns are existing side by side, parallelly, so to say. And Dehaene, it is that as early as 2014, as late as 2014, Dehaene says, Rene Descartes' theory of the nervous system stopped short of a fully materialistic conception of thought. And those of us who have done philosophy of mind, we know that fully materialistic conception of thinking, of human cognitive functions is still not successful. But Descartes almost reached that stage in his theorizations. And these theorizations were not entirely speculative. They were hardly speculative. They were all based on detailed dissection of different bodies that Descartes was participating in. Now, Dehaene is talking of the same work that I was discussing just now. He says, in Treatise on Men, Descartes foresaw that vision and action could result from a proper arrangement of the connections between the eye, the pineal gland inside the brain, the arm muscles. He envisaged even memory as a selective reinforcement of these neuronal pathways, like the punching of holes in cloth. Even fluctuations in consciousness could be explained by Descartes in variations in the pressure of the animal spirits that move the pineal gland. High pressure led to wakefulness, low pressure led to sleep. In spite of this mechanistic stance, Descartes believed that the mind and body were made of different kinds of stuff that interacted through the pineal gland. So we have here a totally materialistic, mechanistic theory of human body from someone like Descartes. And in fact, if you see, I picked up only a few pictures from the Treatise on Men. As you will see here, I'm just picked up some, just a minute. This is here, this is a picture from Descartes where he's identifying different functions in the brain. And I want to, there's another one, I'm coming to that. Now look at this. here is on the left side, this one, we have how the sensations reach all the way, the flow of even the flow of the blood, here the kidneys, the heart, and the brain. These are the things. And now this figure, this one that you have, which is talking about what is in the present day, you can say it's only towards the second half of the, or you can say 1940s, 50s, that we got here. The physical sciences, neurology reached here around after, almost after the Second World War. This is where he's talking of how this in the present day jargon of neuroscience is called localization of function. That is how different bodily functions, whether functions related with our outer sense organs or functions related with control of all bodily functions, including our biochemistry, are situated somewhere or the other. So everything that exists in the body, this is called mapping of the body in the mind or in the brain, mapping of the body in the brain, that every part of the body is controlled from somewhere or the other within the brain, within the skull. And this is where, by looking at the actual brains of living beings, Descartes is talking how different parts of, like imagination here, this is sense of self here, and so on and so forth. So there's memory. So Descartes is, really ahead of time, almost by 200 to 300 years, about his understanding of what a human body is. So he's talking of what I've written here, a pineal gland and different faculties, how they interact, and he's hinting at localization of function, which became established only after the Second World War. This is the most famous. You will find any book on Descartes. This is the most famous picture by him, where he's talking of how sensations. Let's say you touch a hot object or you touch fire, and how the sensations travel all the way through the sensory nerves, and the sensation is registered somewhere here, which is to do with the sense of touch, right? All these pathways were actually traced by him in dissected bodies, slaughtered bodies, which he used to bring from the slaughterhouse. Okay. Now, this is so far as the view of the body as as a sophisticated machine. Now we come to the beginning of the artificial intelligence, and here we are going to see the other side of Descartes, where he's again almost 300 ahead of what an artificial device must be for us to appreciate the challenges that exist while devising artificial devices. Now, many philosophers, consider the aims of AI to be unattainable, not achievable. Philosophers believe that what AI is aiming at cannot be achieved, because what is AI doing? AI is trying to build artificial animals, or those who are very enthusiastic, they say that we can even create artificial persons. So this is the kind of objective that artificial intelligence has before itself. Now, as regards to the actual beginning of artificial intelligence, this word came to be coined in a conference that happened at Dartmouth in 1956. And it is in this conference of 1956 that the term artificial intelligence was coined. However, the field of AI, that is artificial intelligence, was in operation even before 56. And that's what I was talking about in the very beginning. And in the present times, of course, I will refer to how the thinking of this thought process about artificial intelligence almost goes back as much as to Aristotle in 1400 BC. But in the present time, in a very concrete way, the first person is the great mathematician Alan Turing, who in 1950 published a paper on this topic. And mind you, if you see here, the he lived only for 42 years. He was a great mathematician, the British mathematician, who played a very crucial role for cracking the Enigma code of Germans, which they used to use to communicate during the World War II. And cracking of this code, which Alan Turing's effort allowed, was in some senses responsible for allies of the world's nations against Germany. Uh, Now, also, you need to know the why is it that what happened? Did he die of some disease or anything? No. Turing, even after he was such a great decorated uh, scholar, he was very, very famous. He was homosexual in his orientation. And homosexuality was a crime in Britain of those days. So the moment somehow his sexual orientation got leaked to people, and thinking that he will be humiliated and he would be prosecuted, he committed suicide one fine day. So that is the accidental fact about how certain societal norms can, extinguish the lives of some such bright people. Okay, now what is the question that Turing is interested in? Turing is asking, can machines think? Or can we create machines which think? Why is he saying it? Because again, from the time of Descartes, we know that thinking is an archetypically human uh, characteristic or human achievement. Only we believe, at least it was believed, that only humans could think. Now he's saying, instead of saying this, can machines think, we should say, replace this question if we want to really go ahead with testing this problem, then, or if we want to go about creating a device. In those days, there was no device. So what we have in Turing is not creating of a computer. There was no computers at that time. He's just trying to theoretically demonstrate to us whether at a theoretical level, at an intellectual level, can we is the idea of a thinking machine a coherent notion or not? And once we have demonstrated that it's a coherent notion, then we can go into the nitty-gritty of creating an artifact which will be able to implement and demonstrate the truth of that principle. So here, so what he's saying is, he's saying that can a machine be created such that it is not, it is indistinguishable from humans? And he proposed what is even today called Turing test. This is Turing test. uh, he proposed this test, which what was the test? It says in the Turing test, what is done is, a woman is put in a one room, a computer is supposedly seated in another room, and a human judge is transmitted answer. So a human judge sends out questions to both the rooms through a teleprinter. Okay, it types out, and like a telegram in the old days, I don't know how many of you will this generation know what a telegram was. So with a teleprinter, you can communicate the question, and through a teleprinter, both the machine and a woman will send the answer. Now, the human judge will try to ask questions in a manner that it can make out in which room is seated a real human and in which room there is a machine. So the questions have to be framed in a very intelligent way, so that you know that from whichever room you get a wrong answer, you know that is where the machine is. Now, Turing's idea was that if the answers are no better than 50-50, then we can say that computer in question has passed the Turing test. Now, Turing basically is explicitly arguing that we should build machines. And he believed that the answer to this question of can there be a device which can pass a Turing test? He says this question can be answered in the affirmative. And in fact, he said that we should start designing child machines. By child machines, he meant that we should start gradually, the way scientists do. We should start with simple functions that can be replicated by machines, and then slowly move towards communicating with them the machines in natural language at the human adult level. Now, why is Turing's contribution important? It's important because Turing test continues to define the field of AI even now. In fact, uh, in just a minute. In many ways, AI is in fact, people have argued, is nothing but devoted to building an artifact which can negotiate this test, meaning which can pass the Turing test. In fact, Alan Turing uh, wrote a program in 1950 of playing chess, and uh, there were no computers in those days, but he used to decide from his own side how he could. So he used to both do the job of the machine, and he himself playing chess and trying to come up with a program that could successfully play chess. So AI researchers, even today, as has been noted, are fascinated and are inspired by the Turing test. However, whatever the AI researchers may be doing, a good majority of philosophers are not too impressed by these claims. And as far as philosophers are concerned, they continue to cast doubt over that whether AI will ever succeed. So, from the perspective of philosophy, what we see is that whether it is 1956 conference or it is Turing's paper in the mind on thinking machines, according to them, none of these things come close to AI. Okay, why they don't come close to AI? What is the problem? Why are we facing the problem with AI? Now, I started purposely with Descartes because in Descartes we have a mechanistic notion of what a human body is, what a lived human body is. At the same time, Descartes is saying that we cannot create an artifact. And mind you, he was a great mathematician and regarded as a great rationalist. He's arguing that we will not be able to create an AI, and that's what some of my colleagues were saying in the beginning. That can we really reproduce? You can say create artifacts that can reproduce humans, or that at least, if not immediately humans, at least they can reproduce some. You can say lower animal or human functions or not. Now, in Descartes, we have, as Descartes proposed, we can say, you can say jokingly, it proposed a TT, not that he called it TT because that is Turing test, long before, almost 250 to 300 years before Turing was born. So what is the challenge before? So even this is taken up very seriously by the present day artificial intelligence researchers. What is it? What is the challenge that Descartes put before anyone who intends to make an artifact that can reproduce what humans do? Here is a relevant passage. It is from, so this challenge you see here, Descartes wrote this challenge in 1637. We are in 2021. And AI researchers believe that this challenge that Descartes posed before he did not know that any such things, but given that he was a great scientist, knowing the kind of thinking that excites scientists, he was sure that one fine day scientists are likely to attempt to aim at this, and therefore he laid out the challenges that will be there before any such attempt. So I'm reading out. This is a beautiful passage, extraordinary passage on the challenge that will be there whenever we try to create an artifact which is we consider is a replica of human beings. He says here, uh, if there were machines which bore a resemblance to our body and imitated our actions as far as it was morally possible to do so, we should always have two very certain tests by which to recognize that for all that they were not real men. So he's saying we will be able to show how they are not real humans on what test, two tests that he's setting before the any researcher, any future what came to be known as AI researcher. What is the first challenge? The first is that they could never use speech or other signs as we do when placing our thoughts on record for the benefit of others. For we can easily understand a machine's being constituted so that it can utter words. So imagine in 1637, Descartes is visualizing a possibility where we can have a machine which will be able to utter words of human language. And those of you who are interested, or those who have done philosophy of mind before, will remember the famous John Searle, philosopher of mind's experiment, the Chinese room experiment, which he came up with in 1980s. So we find in some senses the challenge that has been posed by scientists or philosophers of mind in the late 80s. We have the almost same challenge in as many words being articulated in 1637 by Descartes. He says, for we can easily understand a machine's being constituted so that it can utter words and even emit some responses to action on it of a corporeal kind. So it can even make some physical moves, which brings about a change in its organs. So it can move its body parts, the artificial machine. For instance, if it is touched in a particular part, it may ask what we wish to say to it. Imagine in 1637, Descartes visualizing what a machine could be, an artificial machine could be. If in another part, it may exclaim, the machine, that it is being heard and so on. But it never happens that it arranges its speech in various ways in order to reply appropriately to everything that may be said in its presence, and even the lowest type of man can do. This, he's saying, is one thing that the machine will not be able to do. And the second difference is that although machines can perform certain things as well as, or perhaps better than any of us can do. So he's visualizing that there are machines which can perform as well as, or they may even execute certain, functions, or they could do certain jobs better than us. They, despite this, they infallibly fall short in others, by which means we may discover that they did not act from knowledge, but only for the disposition of their organs. For while reason is a universal instrument which can serve for all contingencies, these organs have need of some special adaptation for every particular action. From this, it follows that, Descartes, 1637, it is morally impossible that there should be sufficient diversity in any machine to allow it to act in all the events of life in the same way our reason causes us to act. So he's saying this is what he is not able to imagine a machine will be able to do as and when it is ever created. So these are the doubts. This is the challenge that Descartes is articulating as early as 1637. Okay. This is almost 300 years, 250 to 70 odd years before even Alan Turing was born. Okay, so this is what the artificial intelligence tries to do. Perhaps this is what it is trying to do, but let us see. I remember when one of my students at one point of time was wanting to work on a MPhil dissertation on artificial consciousness about 10 odd years back. I said, no, this area is not going to develop much. There's hardly anything, and artificial intelligence is trying for 60, 70 years, and it doesn't have much on its table. But suddenly, last 10, 12 years, things have changed drastically. Things have changed drastically. And this is now I bring to this section where I was saying, where I was just going to go through fast. Can I take 5-7 minutes more? Dr. Hemlata?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I've cut short. If you can see, just a minute. See, I was at page 14 here. And I had this 56-page write-up. So as I was saying, I'm not going to get into that. That will take 2 days. So I'm coming on to this, what I call as interesting AI explorations. So recently, the MIT Technology Review, it's a journal brought about by, it's a review of technology research brought out by MIT, which is regarded as one of the best institutions in the world for technology. Now, as you are, I'm starting with this example because this connects to us experientially. We are all, homebound because of the COVID. Now, as you know, the Pfizer vaccine as well as the Moderna vaccine is based on mRNA. So this is called messenger RNA. And technology review is arguing that the new messenger RNA vaccine that has been designed for fighting COVID is based on this AI-based research or on this, and this is going to transform medicine in a big way. So it is not only that mRNA vaccine is going to work where biotechnology and artificial intelligence coming together, but it is going to be a big boon for other incurable diseases like sickle cell anemia and HIV. So this is the link that is there. If I have time, I can press any one of them and you can see more. Then, just a few days back, there was this talk of a 16 odd year old boy has created an app which can, of course, as of now, can only operate on iPhones. He has created an app which can do what a genetics laboratory can do. So you can have a genetics laboratory governed by app based on AI. You can keep it in your pocket and you do genetic testing. This is very exciting work that has come. It's again reported by Technology Review from the MIT. Then there's another area where AI is being used for seeing how our genes undergo mutations as we age. So here is another area where there is an attempt to slow down aging. So while human beings have always been fascinated by immortality, and they know that it is still far from true that we'll be anywhere near immortality, but they are saying that while we cannot yet ensure immortality, we can still slow down aging. So the kind of data crunching that is required for identifying mutations on genes as we age is again a tool that is being used to stop aging. Then again, see, as late as November 2020, this one, again, Technology Review reported a very exciting discovery. Artificial intelligence cracks a 50-year-old problem in protein biology. Now, what is this problem? Problem is that proteins are so diverse. There's so many kinds of protein, whether we talk of living beings or humans, and proteins with the same structure, if they adopt a different shape, their characteristics change. Now, how do we do that? Till now, in biology research, the supervisors gave a particular protein, and if you could work upon what the structure of the protein was and how this protein could interact with other living organisms, you got your PhD. So you require a PhD to work for 3 to 5 years to crack the structure of one single protein. But artificial intelligence devised some of the efforts have been able to show how you can have large scale sequencing, large scale knowledge of protein structures of different kinds in biology. And this is also one of the reasons you will see which is responsible for so much of new drugs being discovered and new vaccines being attempted for COVID and other diseases. This is again entirely artificial intelligence inspired. What is artificial intelligence doing? Artificial intelligence, I did not go to that, but I'm just mentioning it in passing, that there's this machine learning which is doing all these wonders. And machine learning also comes in various varieties. I have not had a time, but any point of time, I have given my email. Any one of you wants to read more, I can pass on the material. So whether it is deep learning, whether it is unsupervised learning, or whether it is reinforced learning, or it is supervised learning. So there are all kind of these approaches in artificial intelligence, and different approaches are adopted or modified depending upon the subject domain that we are dealing with. So this is again a great achievement where artificial intelligence has shown that some of the very you can say back-breaking, very manual kind of a work that biologists used to do, they no longer would be required to do once this becomes popular. Okay, similarly, this is slightly the problematic part. According to MIT Technology Review, what matters in AI right now, these are the 3-4 areas which have been shown where a lot of exciting research is happening or likely to show results in near future. Face recognition is one of them. You have seen some of you who have latest smartphones. They open with looking at your face. Then machine learning, creating robots which could be used whether in the laboratory or in your household work for helping you, or used in warfare. Okay, voice assistants you are all familiar with, whether you use Alexa or whether you use Google voice assistants and so on and so forth. Now, similarly, AI, now people are arguing that if AI collects different information, what our different senses give us, then we will be able to have more flexible intelligence. Now, then there is this natural language processor, GPT-3. This is another AI tool, which is supposed to have mastered English. And it sort of captured public imagination, much like DeepMind's AlphaGo or IBM's chess playing Deep Blue. I've not got into that, but let me just point out that this Go is a old Chinese game which requires a lot of loud thinking, a lot of complicated thinking process. And just a few months back, the best Go player was defeated by DeepMind's, this AI. Similarly, we are aware of IBM's Deep Blue, which sort of defeated, the best chess player in the world. But this one, that is the GPT-3, it is, is built by this OpenAI research lab in San Francisco. And basically what it does is it works on algorithms using deep learning. And it has been fed with thousands of books and string of words, phrases, and so on and so forth. And what it can do is GPT-3, what it can do is it can mimic. So you can say it can write essays. So human written text can be done. So I'm just thinking whether some of the students are going to try writing their internal assessment with the help of some of these tools. I'll come to that as and when there is a question, because we in the university used to, from last few years, pride ourselves by saying that if anybody cheats, anybody copies from anything, and if anybody has plagiarized, we will be able to catch them. Just very recently, we heard that there are softwares which see to it that you give them a topic and they will write an essay for you, and they will write in a manner that even the most sophisticated plagiarism software cannot catch that particular piece has been written by a software and not by a human being. So maybe it requires a lot of money, but I'm saying it is going to be becoming more and more difficult for researchers to identify as to what is presented to you by the researcher is his or her own work, or it is some smart software that is doing the job on behalf of your student. Okay, then there is talk about decision making. The best example of that has been automated driving systems. Okay, however, what researchers are also cautioning us is about the bias. So there have been research that show that there's a hiring bias, that people tend to uh, be biased about the kind of people that they hire. So, and that is all depends upon the kind of information that is available on the internet, on the World Wide Web, about kind of people that they are. So people with particular looks, people with particular tastes, people with particular orientations can be rejected. So because these algorithms are used for shortlisting people or even interviewing people, So while it is all implemented for the sake of objectivity and transparency, but these algorithms are not without their own inherent bias. Also, you can say there is this offensive AI also, which can be used to attack, which can be used to have campaigns which are AI driven campaign. So you can decide how to campaign against a particular policy, against a particular government, or against a particular social movement, or depends upon how you tailor your AI system without getting detected. That is the thing, that the systems coming into being, which can you can say unleash a kind of a campaign on a particular idea without being detected as to who is actually doing. So that is one more thing. The other the negative side of the AI is that it is this is again a point which has been sort of emphasized by feminists, for instance. Now, AOC is this young congresswoman from US, this one, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? She's the one. Now, what happened is, what somebody did was, uh, somebody created, now what has been found is basically that these algorithms, so AI saw a cropped photo of AOC, so her photo was available here, and what did the AI do? It auto completed her wearing a bikini. So some program just made put her real face and made her appear in a bikini as if she was actually wearing such outfit. So image generation algorithms have created a lot of these problems, because it is found that these systems tend to, because the inputs that they take are from sources that are sexist or racist in nature, and they are therefore likely to reproduce those biases in their algorithms. So these are known. So it has been found that they involve racist and sexist ideas, and they pick up information on that from the net, and which they consider, these algorithms consider to be normal. So if they use biases, racist biases or sexist biases, they consider it's a normal thing to do. And this was demonstrated. In fact, it has been demonstrated. Now see the bias, how it works. Feed one here, please. You can look at this here. I'll just blow it up. Feed one a photo of a man cropped right below his neck. So you just have a photograph of a man which is cut right below his neck, and 40% of the time it will auto complete him wearing a suit. So the algorithm, if you have a face of a man which is just right below the neck, it dresses that man in a suit. Feed the same algorithm one photograph cropped of a woman, even a famous woman like US Representative Alexandria, and 53% of the time it auto completes her wearing a low cut top or a bikini. Now, this is the kind of danger that we have, that it reproduces the currently existing biases that we are wanting to get rid of. And here these things are coming back to us through AI systems. So these are some of the dangers wherein the societal biases can be reproduced by AI systems. That's why there is a lot of hue and cry these days about having ethical AI ethics in place before it gets too far. Now, AI is also being found to be exceedingly successful in radio diagnosis. So you give a MRI scan or a CT scan or a PET scan of a patient, and it has been found that AI systems are able to diagnose any disease or abnormality better than above average doctor. So that is when I'm not going to buy that. Then is this there was this curious case talked about by story told by a machine, where a machine produce a very nice piece, and that is created, and one of the person involved is in this research is a person of Indian origin, AI researcher Singha Chaturvedi. It's her team which worked on this natural language processing for creating machines that could, uh, you can say, create stories or novels on their own. So you just give them a theme broadly, and they'll pick up information from the net, and they will come up with a nice story. This is being done. In fact, in some of the world's developed countries, we find that a lot of, some of the low-level legal jobs and as well as reporting jobs are being done by the AI systems, where they pick up information from a lot of sources, and they present it before, so as they are saying, of course they may not write fiction like George Orwell wrote or something else, but still, this was a very this uh, this was a kind of a very good attempt, reported in the Guardian newspaper, about how an AI system wrote a nice short novel of sorts. It has also been found that some of the AI systems have reached a stage where, in one study reported in the US, mm, while the best of legal luminaries on a topic were set of topics were right 80% of the time, AI systems gave legally sound opinion on the issue of legal issue more than 92% of the time. So this is the kind of expertise that AI systems have reached in a piecemeal manner. So we still don't have any device which can do all these different aspects that I'm referring to in totality, but they can do it in a piecemeal manner. And there is this lot of research also, present day times. AI is also starting onto this consciousness research, in which area in which I work, and wherein they are trying to bring together neuroscience, machine learning through different strategies like deep learning, supervised learning, and so on and so forth. So, and these are some of the models of consciousness, of how a system artifact could be conscious. This is the most simple feed-forward model. This is a recurrent model where the information is refed. This is a recurrent model with emotion. This is autoencoder. This is autoencoder with emotion. So people are just adding more and more features to these devices. And the most complicated one is this, based on Antonio Damasio. He's one of the leading neurobiologists of the world, and he also has a lot of interest in philosophy because he wrote a beautiful book on Descartes' error. In the 90s, he came up with a book on feelings, the feeling of what happens. Then he wrote a book on Spinoza, and his last book, which came out 5-6 years back, of Damasio, was The Self Comes to Mind. So these are some of the efforts which are taking place. So this is the kind of machine learning tools which are being used for trying to, you can say, come up with models of simple cognitive functions. Okay, so I think I'll have, in fact, in the end of December itself, Frontiers in Computational Neuroscience. It's a very reputed journal which reported a very nice article, which is available at this location. Will we ever have conscious machines? It's a very good article which talks of how neuroscience and machine learning and artificial intelligence are coming together in trying to create conscious machines. So to just sum it up, we see that it all started with the philosophers, and in many senses, we were the troublemakers of this thinking, and we were also the ones who, uh, articulated the challenges that would lie ahead for anyone who was trying to create conscious machines. With that, I will end, and I look forward to your feedback, your suggestions, and any other comments that you may have. Thank you very much for listening to this long monologue from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for presenting such a different perspective on the topic, humans and technology. Every aspect of our life is so categorically placed, it is almost mechanical. It is also said that humans, in their close association with technology, have inadvertently become a part of the system itself. We are even called thinking machines. The chat box, like our minds, is brimming with questions. So without further ado, I would like to put some of them forth. Ayushi Rajput has asked, Descartes talked about cell automata being the future. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. You're asking me to look at these questions?
Yes, sir. So I'm going
I
to be
started
asking
reading
those
out the chat, the questions in the chat.
Yes, sir, I'm going to be asking those.
Okay.
So the first question is, Descartes talked about cell automata being the future. Can you elaborate on that a little?
Is it? I see there's one other than the anatomical aspects in the
Yes,
chat.
sir, I'll be asking all of them.
Okay, fine. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Descartes talked about cell automata being the future. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I would not say Descartes did not talk of automata as a future. Descartes talked, as I was said, that Descartes' thinking was very divided. On the one hand, he is arguing that no artifact can ever reach anywhere closer to what human beings can do. At the same time, he is trying to explain all bodily functions, including cognitive, that is thinking processes, through in mechanical ways. So it is this intelligent moral action happens from this communication that happens through the pineal gland from the thinking substance to the mechanical body. So he's only having problems about creating an artifact that can reproduce human beings in their different aspects. But he has no doubt about our body doing what it does, and everything that we can attribute to body according to him was being done entirely mechanically. So he's only questioning, he's only doubting our ability to ever reproduce an artifact which could mimic human beings. So that is the challenge which he's posing. But as regards the working of the human body, whether for rightly or wrongly, he has no doubts. As I quoted that read out that small quotation from Stanislas Dehaene, that he's saying that he has a totally scientifically physicalist, you want to call it, or materialistic conception of what a human body is. What a hard-nosed empiricist or hard-nosed realist would like to say about human body. Descartes is saying all that about human body. Only he's saying that that no artifact will ever be created which can reproduce humans, and that may be because that humans are the only unique beings in the world for him, much in line with the Judo-Christian thinking that animals for him don't have souls. So human beings alone have souls. So it is because of the privilege and the only living things that have that privilege of being endowed with a soul that human beings are not replicable. Otherwise, as far as their bodily existence is concerned or that of other animals is concerned, there are no problems about it. They are already existing human, the mechanical devices, bodies, which of course he will say God created. But once those things are there in place, everything that they do, everything they accomplish is entirely explainable in mechanistic terms.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, other than the anatomical aspects of the working of human beings, of the working of humans being mechanical, the mental, emotional, and social actions also seem to be too mechanical or to be presupposed. Would you agree that humans are not just metaphorical machines in neural and anatomical contexts, but just about everything?
Uh, See, it's a difficult question in the sense that it really so much does not matter what I think about it. What matters is where our research will take us. That's what I would say. And I would say that as of now, nobody has, taken a pledge that they would like to explain everything in mechanically. In fact, I would say that all the progress that has happened in last 10, 15 years in the AI is is through implementation of AI systems that are not based on mechanistic principles. So we have had connectionist models, this feed-forward models, the deep learning machines, wherein the artifact itself can improvise, can improve its own performance depending upon how close its outcomes are to the intended target. So there is a self-learning happening there. So what people say is that maybe connectionism, or you can say dynamic systems model would be a better way. So in many senses, the manner in which, let us say, AI was visualized by Alan Turing, that was serial processing. So in Turing, there is no limitation of time to execute a job because he was doing only an intellectual exercise. So if that is the case, so in some senses you can say the classical AI, the AI as it was viewed in the 60s and the 80s, has already failed. Okay, and that was based on people were arguing that we could mimic or we could reproduce human thinking on on the basis of serial computers. Okay, serial processing. But that is not what is happening now. The present AI system, the exciting research that I talked about to you, it is not of the serial processing kind at all. Okay, but now what has happened is that the debate, which was so central earlier on, and that was so that which so much attracted philosophers, is in some senses has been left behind. Because people feel that it really doesn't matter. What matters is what gives you result. So you keep tweaking, you keep modifying the system, the algorithm you are working upon, and you try to then come up with the supporting computing mechanism. You try to increase computing ability, and now there's a talk of quantum computers and so on and so forth, where the computing ability would be really multiplied a great deal. So I would say, in some senses, mechanistic approach has been given up. What has not been given up is materialistic approach. What is a materialistic approach? That all life is grounded in this world. That there is nothing happens in this universe which cannot be explained by laws of physics. So given the naturalistic metaphysics, if you want to call it, if you want to use a philosophical jargon, so naturalistic, within the parameters of the naturalistic metaphysics, within the parameters of physicalism, that is, everything that exists is physical in nature in some form or the other, and all that we see, the wonders of life that we come across, are nothing but the new structures, whether cognitive structures or whether bodily structures, that have come into being through hit and trial of under, you can say, larger evolutionary compulsions of thriving within the existing conditions that exist. In fact, I did not have time, but just last month there was very nice report which excited a lot of AI researchers and philosophers alike. There was a discovery of one or two insects whose body parts function in a perfectly mechanistic way. So again, some people who thought of going back to this kind of an approach got very excited about it, entirely in mechanistic way. And in some senses, mechanistic in such a rigorous, sophisticated way that we have hardly been able to devise anything similar. So these days, what the approach of AI or the scientific establishment is, it is no longer trying to create artifacts like Turing's time that the classical AI was trying to do. But what we are trying to do, one of the, you can say, the the one of the emergent, you can say, emerging, or you can say emerging line of thinking is what is called biomimicry. That is, the human beings are slowly realizing that nature has been a much better engineer. It is able to, it has designed things at a very fraction of a cost of what human beings do, and that is because under terrible constraints. The nature did not have the luxury of removing one body part and throwing it away, or removing one part of the brain and replacing it with another one, like what a laboratory or engineer will do in the lab. So 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 basically the job is, question is no longer, so there's no such orthodoxy where people are wanting to cling on to any really principled stand. The idea is to make progress as much as possible, and in many ways, often these things, produce very lopsided results also, because if question becomes about producing of results, then it also the commercial angle also comes into play, wherein you think of commercializing the technology, and therefore, in many senses, only uh, only efforts which have a potential commercial outcome get encouraged. So there are all kind of things that are happening, but I feel there are no such mm, hard-nosed people who are totally committed to any one paradigm.
All right, so moving on to the next question. All machines have a driving force, be it electricity or battery. What do you think the human machine, social and anatomical, is driven by?
I would say the DNA.
Right.
Damasio has a beautiful book. I find Damasio very fascinating for the simple reason that he has written 3 books on philosophy, extraordinary books, starting with Descartes' Error, Feeling of What Happens, book on Spinoza, and the Self Comes to Mind. So it is in Damasio's Self Comes to Mind where he says, what is the objective of any living being? The objective of every living being is the well-being, flourishing of the organism in question. So cockroaches want to flourish depending upon what are their evolutionary goals. Cats and dogs will do it another way. Snakes and reptiles will do another way. Humans will do another way. So the question is, so Damasio says very in a one-liner of sorts, that the desire of every living thing is to live their entire, you can say, genetically mandated quota of life. Okay, so there is this whole talk about aging process I referred to, with a lot of research is happening, that in fact a lot of researchers are very strongly arguing that aging should be declared as a disease, not as a inevitable condition. And once you declare it as a disease, then you get more funding, and if you get more funding, then you can do more research in that area. And if you are aware, it keeps coming in the news, as well as at least in scientific journals, that CRISPR, which is a genetic tool, CRISPR has got so modified, so extraordinarily efficient now. It's a very, very complicated molecular editing technique. But scientists of late have made it so easy to implement that it has become much like what we do in MS Word, cut and paste. So CRISPR, what you do is, it has been found, at least on rats, on other animals, what has been done is that in rats, the research, rats are poor things are used all the time for biological research. So what you do, you create a rat with a particular disease. So once you have identified a gene which is responsible for a particular kind of a disease, you create a rat which will be born with that disease. Okay, and then you see the manifestation. So it proves your hunch that this gene is responsible. First you have this, first you have, through looking at things, you know that these are the likely genes. Then you start working on one by one, and then you know that, okay, these is the group of genes, or very few. The ideal for any biologist is to find one or two genes which they can identify for a particular, syndrome or particular outcome. And what they do is they create these genes, and they see that, yes, if these genes are not there, or these genes are there in a distorted form or in a corrupted form, then what are the consequences? And once they have the consequences, then these very animals are then operated upon through CRISPR, and then they remove the wrong gene that was deliberately inserted in the DNA. They remove it and replace it with the correct copy, and they have found that the kind of deformities, the kind of deficits that different organisms were born with clear away. So this kind of a thing is possible. So I would say that we are all here, we like it or not. If we were to talk scientifically, we are all here to live our genetic allowance. So if you got a good genetic allowance, you will live for longer, disease free. If not, and this genetic allowance is, genetics is a, is a very, it's no longer thought of as something, action is no longer thought of as something, which will continue to act the way it is born, you are born with. No, you can modify the activity of your genes. So in that sense, your genes are not your biological destiny. At least that's the understanding of genetics we have now. So I think if you take carbohydrate rich diet and you become obese, then definitely what can you are bound to get diabetic, or you're bound to get develop cardiovascular diseases, or you will get your knee arthritis very early, and then definitely you will not be able to live your genetic allowance in the most efficient and appropriate way.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to the next question by Tanya Kapoor. Would the artificial intelligence that has passed the Turing test qualify to become known as the am in the context of I think, therefore I am?
Would the AI that has passed the Turing test qualify to become? I think. I feel we will be extending stretching this. I think, therefore, I am business too much. If we start thinking this way, AI test, yes, we can say in some rudimentary ways, yes, your AI system has passed the Turing test. Basically, it means that it can, in principle, think. And as I'm saying, we have come a long way from those days, and in piecemeal fashion. See, as far as technology doing what we can do, we know for long that technological devices, some of the things they can do better than us. We know a steam engine. A steam engine came into being long back. So the kind of load that a steam engine can push, no human being can do. So it is not a question of that. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of human abilities were surpassed long back by artifacts, by machines. The question is what we have prided ourselves. And that's what Descartes is saying. Turing is very hopeful we can do that, of course. He's on the other side of the table. But basically, what we are doing is that we see, the Turing is asking a question: what is uniquely human? And he's answering intelligence. And then he's saying the next question: can we therefore fabricate, design artifacts that can display intelligent behavior? So just because something passes AI does not mean that that AI system can be in anguish. That AI system, like for instance, if you don't get if you are not a top scorer of your college, you have one kind of a pain. Maybe if I just pass and I'm not I don't flunk and don't get a ER, I'm happy enough. So what I'm trying to say is that there's no such universal yardsticks. So we should not mistake that just because something passes a Turing test, we are being able to reproduce a human being. Not at all. Human beings is much more complex thing, frankly. What is aimed at is, can we produce, now we have reached a stage where human machines are, artifacts are, machines are, even not even machines, the same, with the same hardware, algorithms are able to improve their own performance depending upon how good they are. And even if they are exceedingly good, they are able to go beyond even where they have reached. And that is where there is all kind of questions by, I did not have time, but like people like Kurzweil, he is the one who has this famous book of Singularity is Near, and he says basically people like Kurzweil are working more on the Turing kind of a line, wherein he's trying to show that what is uniquely human is basically the manner in which complex information is organized, whether that organization of that information is through genes or through a cognitive makeup, the neuronal brain makeup that we have. And therefore he says he is a functionalist in that sense. Functionalism is an approach in philosophy wherein it argues that it does not matter what we are made of. What matters is what function we can perform. So some people, some philosophers of mind argue that we should not indulge in any neuronal chauvinism. That is, we should not say that only only beings which have brains have, capable of intelligent behavior and so on and so forth. So we should, so there are different objectives at work. And I think nobody in his or her right mind thinks that by passing Turing test, we have come anywhere near. Yes, maybe one ability, but that's not the only ability that human beings have. But what I'm trying to say is that AI is fast encroaching on, more and more human specific functions, if not in a comprehensive way, not in a total way, at least in a piecemeal fashion.
Right. Thank you so much, sir. With this, I would like to conclude the question answer session with the constraint of time. Thank you, sir, for answering all our questions so patiently and paving way for all the philosophical debates that follow in our classrooms. I would now like to invite Ms. Premlata Singh, the Joint Secretary of HSITWA, the Department of Philosophy, for the vote of thanks.
Premlata, your voice is not coming.
See, right things stop at the right time. I don't think I said anything which was worthy of being thanked.
Come on, sir. It was so.
So even the machine is.
No, sir. It was
not cooperating.
Beautifully, the foundations of.
No, I'm just joking. Don't worry.
Yeah.
One should never give up this ability to laugh at oneself.
Yeah, true. Premlata, you're still muted.
I think there's some.
Premlata, please rejoin.
Sir, before Premlata delivers a formal note of thanks, I would extend thanks to you personally from my side for beautifully tracing out the foundations of present-day AI from Descartes onwards. This was a really wonderful go through from there to this present-day scenario. And we really enjoyed it. It was really very interesting, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think I don't know whether it is from Dr. Lakshmi Vats or somebody. There was this question: Descartes was considering artificial intelligence in the early 17th century.
Yeah, it
I don't know
would be.
whose it is. Maybe it says from Dr. Lakshmi Vats, but I don't know whether it's from her.
It's from
It's a
her
good
only.
question.
Yeah, sir, please, we would like, I mean, you can take it up. It's okay.
Yeah, she's saying Descartes was considering artificial intelligence in the early 17th century. Yes, when Descartes talks of thinking machines in the discourse on method, Descartes shows that he has an artificial intelligence theory, one in which the very possibility of thinking machines is discounted, and one in which the very thinking machine is held to be a misnomer. These theories typically disallow the possibility of artificial intelligence on the view that while computers can do something much better than humans, the success of machine is always limited to one particular micro world, the world of chess, for example, or other, whereas humans typically have a wide-ranging ability to perform all sorts of tasks. Computers can do tasks, human excel, perform tasks in which intuition is required. Computers can do no task at all where intuition is not required. Yes, yes. See, that's what I'm saying. He's posing this natural language processing that. So what Descartes is saying and treatise on man. So he's saying that, for instance, the artifact, any possible artifact will not be able to, take part in a linguistic conversation, so to say, or a linguistic conversation at least that is based on understanding what one is saying or what one is doing. So that is definitely the case. But as I would say, as I've been saying, Descartes is very, uh, and I feel I would recommend that Dr. Lakshmi Vats should maybe have a look at this treatise on man. She'll really enjoy reading it because we have this, Descartes is a very odd figure in so many ways. And that's why I wanted to trace his, intellectual, religious, and background, because on the one hand, he's somebody who's exceedingly bright. He's a world-class mathematician. He's a father of Cartesian geometry, and he has something very nice to say on light and so on and so forth. And imagine going to live in Amsterdam and every day going to the butcher and sitting there watching, looking at the dead bodies, examining them, and even then bringing them back home to look at them more carefully. So imagine doing that in 1630s. That's why even till date, as I was saying, every neurology textbook also talks of Descartes. And that picture I mentioned about his reflex action, which is the most famous talk of, you accidentally touching fire and how the experience of fire happens, so on and so forth. So he's somebody who is trying to, in many ways, some people say, trying to combine which was never combinable. So he's trying to combine his, metaphysical commitments, religious Judo-Christian commitments with uh, hard-nosed mechanistic thinking. So he's somehow able to, live with it side by side. But a lot of people find that there's a big contradiction in. So basically, they say that either we take his, his, this privileging of the soul seriously, or we take his mechanistic thinking seriously. But when we take both of these things seriously, then what we have is, a contradiction of sorts, things which cannot go together. So that's why this dualistic thinking. But there is no escaping it even now fully. So even physicalists are having problems, and they are trying to somehow, not be a reductionist in approach. And the moment physicalists say that we are not reductionist, their opponents immediately say, then you are a property dualist at least. So you may not be a substance dualist like Descartes, you are a property dualist. So dualism in some form or the other keeps returning to us. So I don't know where will it be, where will it lead us. But I can only say that we are making a lot of very exciting advances, and some very mind-boggling new things are happening. And as I pointed out, all of them are necessarily good. Some of them are really bringing out the worst of human traits or human practices or human perceptions. as I showed about hiring bias, other racist or sexist biases that are at play.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Premlata.
First of all, sorry everyone for the glitch. Uh, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. The whole point of this periodic lecture series is to provide us knowledge and insight on philosophy. This particular series focuses on interaction between human and technology and its after effect. So, first of all, I would like to thank to Dr. RM Singh for his time and effort to conduct such an efficient and interesting session with all of us. Thank you so much, sir. I highly appreciate you for sharing your views with us. We are obliged to have Principal Ma'am Professor Harpreet Kaur and her enlightening presence among us. Thank you, ma'am, for always motivating and encouraging us to learn, grow, and explore the world. We would also like to extend our gratitude toward the ICPR team for sponsoring the periodic lecture series. Not to forget our faculty members. Thank you to all the professors for their constant support and guidance. Special mention to the convener of the program and the teacher in charge of the philosophy department, Dr. Hemlata Krishnani, and teacher coordinator, and co-convener, Miss Kirandeep Kaur, and teacher coordinator, Dr. Jolly Singh. I would also like to thank the student council team and the technical team for their resilience. Thank you, Miss Adya and Miss Mantisha. Special mention to Sangeeta ma'am. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Special mention to Sangeeta ma'am for always helping us last minute for and throughout the session. Thank you so much, ma'am. Without you, this could not be possible. Last but not the least, I would also like to thank to all the members who are present here. Today, we try to organize and conduct a session to make it fruitful for all of us. But without your presence, this could not be possible. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope to see you again very soon in another part of this periodic lecture series. Like always, please follow us on Instagram for all the updates and upcoming events. Once again, thank you to the guest speaker for your time and efforts. Now over to you, Mehak.
Hi, thank you everyone. Without your support, this could not have been possible. Now I please request you all to kindly switch on your cameras so that the technical team can take the screenshots.
Okay then, so
Yeah.
we leave it here
Yes, sir. And we hope
and
it
look
after
forward to catching up sometime
yeah,
again. And
yeah, we would really look forward to it, sir. Definitely
definitely.
next semester we will have another lecture with
No,
you.
no, definitely. I hope
Thank
things are
you.
better and we can
Yeah,
you know,
sure. We'll definitely invite
meet
you.
and talk and discuss and one-to-one.
Yeah,
That is so much more
real.
satisfying, if not. So this, as I was saying in the very beginning, I'm quite tired of this online existence. So
I know.
thank you very much, all of you. And in the beginning of my talk, I've given you my email ID. So anybody feels interested, if they want some more reading material or anything, you can always write, and I'll always pass on things to you. And I even have a long broadcast group where I keep on passing new research that is happening in philosophy of mind, AI, as well as biological sciences. So anybody wants, I have a WhatsApp group, and I can include anybody who's interested in keeping a tab on the kind of work that is happening. Okay, so Dr. Hemlata, thank you very much for being so persistent. And I'm
Sorry for that only.
not a
For being
very
so persistent.
I generally, shy away from such things. I'm more of, the classroom kind of a person who's.
But I think this was really very interesting and very informative. You should indulge in this much more often. So when we are in
I
physical
hope so.
mode,
I
I'm
hope
going
so.
to invite you again.
Definitely. See, please, what I would say is that don't bother about, this is sponsorship, that is
Okay.
sponsorship,
Yeah.
or, this honorarium, that honorarium. I really don't like it, frankly. And all I need is a few nice cups of tea. And that is all I'll,
That's pending,
dive into
sir.
your
जरूर
campus
पियेंगे
anytime.
साथ में चाय
Yeah,
in
yeah.
our next lecture.